Good afternoon, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andre. Thank you so much for joining as we are about to discuss a very important topical matter. Now, this afternoon, we are going to look at the PNP's missed opportunity, the fact that Mark Golding, the leader of the opposition, wasted an opportunity in which he could have articulated very clearly where he wants to take Jamaica during that protest against Dennis Chung. Now, we have to be careful as citizens about where our nation state is heading, because there seems to be now an unraveling of the Jamaican state. And when I look at some of the comments coming on my videos, I realize that we are polarized as a people, that we are in fact polarized, and that we do need, at this juncture of our history, guidance. We do need a lot of guidance as far as that is concerned. Now, we understand that if we do not handle this controversy very well, it could really rock the country in a direction that might lead to fascism. Now, some of you are saying, might be suggesting, what are you talking about? Do you think that this is going to shake up Jamaica? What is happening with the Dennis Chung saga? Yes, it can. It depends on how the politicians handle it. But there are many part of the story that has been left out that we have to really assess. Now, the Gleaner is reported some times ago that there was an announcement, there was an advertisement for the job position that was now occupied by Dennis Chung as director of the FID. Now, in that job advertisement, which was published sometimes in, I think it might have been in March or in May, it suggests that the Gleaner is saying that this article was published on May 30th, 2025. Experience in law enforcement was removed from FID head job requirements, review shows. So what the Gleaner here is suggesting is that a part of the job description of being the director of the FID is to have experience in law enforcement, which obviously it appears that Dennis Chung, who is a chartered accountant, does not have any experience in law enforcement. Now, why would they remove it from the advertisement, according to the Gleaner? 12 years experience in law enforcement, 5 of them at a senior level, was listed as one of the requirements for the post of Chief Technical Director of the Financial Investigations Division when it was first advertised late last year, a review of the public notice has revealed. So it was the job was advertised last year, the job of the director of the FID that Dennis Chung currently occupies was advertised last year. And in that, a part of that job description was the fact that that person, the applicant should hold experience in law enforcement. And I'm sure at the highest level of, in at least at an administrative level. The FID falls under the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service and is tasked with combating financial crimes and the recovery of assets derived from criminal conduct using the Proceeds of Crime Act. Now, does Dennis Chung, being a chartered accountant, does he have those sort of qualifications? Does he have any experience in which he has gone after financial criminal elements? Now, that is what we have to ask. I don't know. I don't think so. The advertisement was published by the Gleaner on November 24 last year and directed candidates to submit their applications to the Office of the Services Commission. The requirement that the FID boss has a strong law enforcement background was in keeping with a practice that spans over 2 decades, dating back to the tenure of Mike Surridge, a former cop in the United Kingdom. Other past FID chief technical directors include former senior cops as Calvin Small, Justin Felice, and Selvin Hay, I beg your pardon. Now, that's interesting. The fact that the Gleaner is now reporting that the position that Dennis Chung now occupies as the director of the Federal Investigations Bureau Division, that's the Federal Investigations Division, that position requires that you have some amount of experience in law enforcement, in going after financial crimes, which evidently it doesn't seem that Dennis Chung has. So a lot of people, when you talk about what is happening, they're saying, why are you against it? And they think that you are anti-GLP or you are pro-PNP. We should not be pro any of these men, ladies and gentlemen. We must understand we have a country. And if our country is not governed by the rule of law, we're moving into a dictatorship. And this is how this situation, this saga could rock Jamaica, because we see that every day we're moving into that direction, where we're moving away from the rule of law into a one-man rule. And very soon, the iron-fisted man is going to come on the horizon. The military junta, the military dictator that you perhaps are looking for, or maybe you are not looking for, is going to come. We cannot continue to glorify our leaders, be they Mark Golding or Andrew Holness or any of our politicians. We must hold their feet to the fire. We must hold all our leaders, financial leaders, political leaders, we must hold their feet to the fire. And so often what I see in Jamaica is this childlike behavior in which people behave like children and they think that the politicians are their parents. That is what I'm seeing in Jamaica. And they are not our parents. They are our political servants, and we must put the pressure on them. If we don't put pressure on them, then they are going to deceive us and they're going to exploit us to the max. Now, the Gleaner also reported, we talked about the fact that experience in law enforcement was a very pivotal qualification description. Now, the PNP applicant with law enforcement background snubbed in FID search. So it seems like there were applicants with law enforcement experience, but they were snubbed, they were rejected. They weren't accepted by the committee that was set up to recruit the director of the FID. Now, this is what the Gleaner is reporting, and this came out and was published on June 3rd, 2025, so just 3 days ago. The Opposition People's National Party, PNP, is alleging that the Office of the Services Commission, the OSC, rejected the application of an experienced candidate with intel background in favor of Dennis Chung for the job of Chief Technical Director at the Financial Investigations Division. Now, how could that be? Why would they reject somebody who is qualified for the position to give it to Dennis Chung? Do you see what is happening here? Do you see how the favoritism in politics works? And it's not only in politics, it's right throughout the length and breadth of Jamaica. Because even the University of the West Indies, I was talking to my uncle recently, and I said that the fact that they published an advertisement in which they advertised the position for the director of for the FID does not mean that they are really they're objectively looking for the most qualified candidate. Many of the times when you see advertisements in the Jamaica Gleaner or Observer, they already know who they want. And they have that person, but they have to behave like, a democracy, and that is only for window dressing. And you believe, yes, that they're wonderful jobs and jobs are there, but they're no jobs because the jobs are connected to their friends and to their family members. That is what we have to understand. And that seems to be what is happening here, nepotism. And that is what I was suggesting in my previous videos. In my previous video, I should say. But people were attacking me saying that, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Of course, it seems that there is a lot of nepotism at play here. PNP General Secretary Dr. Dayton Campbell said the candidate, who he did not name, previously served at the FID, has 3 years experience at the National Intelligence Bureau and worked at then Transnational Crime and Narcotics Division as head. They refused that person the job, and they gave the job to somebody who said nothing not wrong with what the Prime Minister do. It can't work in a Jamaica, said Campbell at a PNP meeting in Crofts Hill, Clarendon on Sunday. We are going to protest every day until that change. It is a fundamental point about who we are as a country, said Campbell. Now, if this is what is happening, as reported by the Gleaner, something is really not right here. Something needs to be said, and people's voices need to be heard. If indeed somebody who had the qualifications in law enforcement and that person qualified as he or she was, because, Dayton Campbell has refused to identify that person, so we don't know if it's a he or a she. So given that that person was qualified and had the qualification to have sat in that position as the director of the FID and was rejected in lieu of Dennis Chung, it means, therefore, that our politics is corrupt. And Andrew Holness needs to answer some hard questions. The claim comes amid the controversial appointment of Chung, an accountant, as the FID boss. So I was suggesting that he was qualified, but obviously, based on what we're seeing, he's not qualified for the job. So I stand corrected. Dennis Chung is not qualified for the position because he does not have any law enforcement experience, based on my understanding. He doesn't have that sort of forensic knowledge to go after financial criminals, financial crimes. So why would the Prime Minister give, at a very critical point at this juncture of history, particularly as the Prime Minister is accused of having a number of bank accounts, which to many people are surprising, 28 bank accounts. And Dennis Chung was one of them who went that nothing is wrong with it. Nothing is wrong with the Prime Minister having 28 bank accounts. And there are other citizens who have suggested that also, that nothing is wrong. And they will talk about, oh, my father had how many bank accounts, or my mother, or your sister. We must understand that the government of Jamaica, the Prime Minister in particular, is the person that we have selected to rule us, to govern. And if they're having 28 bank accounts, we don't know where they're shifting monies to from one to, we don't know, because they have access to the public purse. Your grandmother and your mother and your father, I'm sure, didn't have access to the public purse. But our ministers of government have access to the public purse. And we know how they love money. And we know how they sometimes have this desire to steal. And the corruption that is endemic in Jamaica. We do know that. So we cannot definitely let Andrew Holness loose. We can't. We have to question, and we have to know what these accounts are, what transactions comprise these 28 accounts, and is there any foul play We have to ask these questions, not because we're suggesting that the prime minister is a thief. We don't have that evidence, but we need to see because he's a public servant. So he needs to show us and what he's doing. If he were a private citizen, then yeah, that's his business. But yet again, if as a private citizen, you are accused of doing something that might smell of a crime, then you also have to show. But more so for a public servant, the likes of the prime minister, he needs to demonstrate, he needs to come clean and transparent about what is happening with those bank accounts. And if there are any, conflict of interest, we need to know. And you can stay there and say that you love Andrew Holness. And nothing is wrong to love him, but guess what? He's not there to stay forever. And when he leaves, and if he leaves with any foul play and the country's financial possessions, then you and your children are the ones who are going to suffer. Because Andrew Holness is not going to be there for eternity. All right? We don't even know if he's going to win the next election. Okay? So you have to be very careful about what you are saying, and you have to be more critical, more discerning, and more objective in your analysis. The PNP has insisted that Chung is not qualified for the position and said previous comments made by him dismissing the findings of the Integrity Commission's investigative report into Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness' statutory declarations further disqualified him. Now, I am not sure if his statements would disqualify him because he has a right to express his opinions. However, according to what the Gleaner is reporting, if they placed a requirement as a part of the job description for this job, for this position as director of the FID, and then they went afterwards and changed it, deleted that requirement to facilitate Mr. Chung's appointment, then that is criminal. That is a criminal act. And the fact that it doesn't appear as if Mr. Chung has any law enforcement experience as a financial, going after financial crimes. It doesn't seem like he has any sort of experience in that particular field. The Gleaner reported that 12 years experience in law enforcement, 5 of them at the senior level, was listed as one of the requirements for the post when it was first advertised. 12 years experience in law enforcement. And I'm sure that Dennis Chung does not have that. I am sure that Dennis Chung does not have that. Let us listen to what Mark Golding, the leader of the opposition, has to say about the matter. I found this and I think, let me see if I could share this with you. Let me see if it's here. Okay, so let me share my screen with you now so that I can show what's going on here. It's not, oh, I'm sorry. It's, let me,
and the need for due date, and the need for elections down, so the people of Jamaica can get rid of this government and install a government that they can have trust and confidence in. A government that will ensure that the resources of the people are used exclusively for the benefit of the people. And a government that don't come to scrape and rip off, but come to deliver change, positive change for the people. The people who are suffering right now because cost of living is so high. And many jobs that are out there are not paying a living wage. And people are struggling even though they're employed. And the farmers are feeling it. And when they get some fertilizer from foreign, first to the kingdom of Morocco, laborers and their cronies are selling the fertilizer to the poor farmers going bit by berries. And need to get back on their feet. fertilizer that should be given to them to help them get back on their feet, to be sold to them. It's that it's great.
Okay, the country looks very bad, and the leader of the opposition, Mark Golding, does not look good there. He needs to present himself better as a leader, someone who is running for the position of Prime Minister of Jamaica. He could have looked better. The fact of the matter is, beyond that, beyond his physical appearance, his attire, I think that Mark Golding speaks a lot in general terms. He generalizes a lot. So he talks about the problems that we're having, like the high cost of living, but he has not stated how he, up to this point, how he's going to bring the high cost of living down. He speaks about corruption, but he's not talking how he is going to wipe out, he's going to eradicate, he's going to definitely minimize on the levels of corruption that we have in Jamaica. He is not giving these specifics. He has not yet offered a manifesto of his practicable, viable plans for building Jamaica. All he's doing is attacking what the incumbent government is doing, and that is not going to be sufficient. It is not going to resonate with the Jamaican people. Already, Mark Golding is not charismatic. And sometimes I do wonder, how much does he love the Jamaican people in the way in which he's even carrying himself? The way in which he was speaking there, he doesn't look like a leader. Mark Golding needs to carry himself and have that aura of a leader. At least Andrew Holness has it. He might not have any substance, but he carries himself as a leader. You must look the role that you are about to occupy. And he is the opposition leader of the People's National Party. And the other day I saw some protests. Let me see if I can find another one. And the depravity of what you see in Jamaica. The depravity is just, I don't know, I think it's indescribable. To me, it is indescribable. And it is very shocking to see that our ministers of government, and they sometimes don't even look better, and they have money. You know, I saw some of the ministers of government, they don't even look better. They look also depressing. So you can imagine, I am not picking up this now. I was trying to show you another. Yeah, that's not being shown. So, but, you know, let me see if I could find another one just for you to get a picture of the protests. I might not be able to pull it up, so I ask you to pardon me if it's not able to come up. Yeah, I think this one was one. Okay, so let us look at what is going on here now with the protest of the appointment of Dennis Chung. But when you look at our people, when you look at the roads, the conditions of our roads, even in what should be developed areas or semi-developed areas, it is appalling. And to me, it's embarrassing. And we publish these things and we put them online, and the entire world is seeing. The entire world is seeing Jamaica at its worst. Very few videos we have up there in which you can look and you feel proud. The entire country looks like just a big ghetto. That is how we look. But we like it. We love the love. We are suffering. So we love that sort of suffering mentality. And the mentality, the mindset, it's a mindset of poverty, a mindset of anti-intellectualism, where we love to be unintelligent. Right? That is how we are. And then people say, you're negative. I am negative. I am not negative. I have to expose what I see. And people who go there, they do also go back expressing that, even though sometimes they're just there to enjoy their vacation. But they cannot but say and admit that Jamaica is a very poverty-stricken country. And it is depressing. The poverty there is depressing. And sometimes when I want to defend us, I can't because it's true. To be to be truthful to you, you might think that I'm saying these things because I love to say them. But a lot of times when I hear foreigners talking about how depressing the conditions are in Jamaica, I am embarrassed. And if I could change it overnight, I would, but I can't. And I don't think Jamaicans also want to change it. They're comfortable with voting for Andrew Holness and voting in Mark Golding. But let us listen to what Mark Golding is saying. He's saying nothing. He's just there dancing and singing. Oh, sorry. I keep on not.
Corruption.
Now, look at these people, people who should know better. And they are there singing like they're at a sports game. Sorry about that. Let me see if I get this off the thing. Okay, yeah. And they're there singing as if they are at a sports game, right? This is the sort of Jamaica that I mean, when you look at the images coming from these protests, you really wonder if we're still in the 1960s, the 1950s. We have not progressed as a people, right? And the way in which our people look, the hardness on the face, the poverty that is pronounced in the way they carry themselves, the backwardness, the social backwardness, the plantation-like appearance. And this is what we're sending to the world. This is what Jamaicans are proud of sending to the world because that is what we think we have achieved. And all we care about are the next 5 years. When are we going to vote again and who is going to win? Who's going to win the elections? When I talk about the economy, you don't want to hear about it. But who is going to win the election? Wow, yes, and you chat all the nonsense. Because that is what you are interested in, entertainment, because all of this thing is entertainment. And Mark Golding does not believe one iota in what he's doing. He's just there to cement his power and to ensure that he's closer to the economic elites and he can get what he needs to get, whatever he and his partners in economics are doing. Now, I was also listening to a brief clip on TikTok that of a panel that was hosted by Colin Bell. And Colin Bell, is an avid PNP. And he had all these people like the Ratigans and the Jeffrey McWittalk program, the McWittalk Jeffrey program. And there's another O'Brien guy who was on it. And all of them suggested that, because they're all PNP. Well, I thought when Ratigan started his program first, his podcast, I thought he was there to shed and to help Jamaica and to help to build Jamaica. But the more you saw it, you realize that he's there vouching for the PNP. He's not just there to help to render a balanced political viewpoint on what is happening in Jamaica. He's there batting for the PNP. Right? You hardly ever hear him talk against the PNP. Right. So he's suggesting, and he's a lawyer. Ratigan is a lawyer. And he is saying, I didn't listen to the reasons he gave for, well, the question was asked, before I even say what he said, the question was asked, should Prime Minister Andrew Holness be on the ballot? Should he even be on the ballot for a third term? And these men who are just podcasters, well, Rattigan is a lawyer, but he doesn't have all of the evidence that he thinks he has. He doesn't have that power or authority. He resides in the United States. To suggest that he's saying, all of them said that Prime Minister Andrew Holness should not be on the ballot for a third term. Now, how can you say that? Now, you can look at some of his corrupt activities and help Jamaicans to understand that Andrew Holness might be a very corrupt person. And I'm sure that, yes, there are corruption allegations against him. If proven, you tell the people that, in light of these corrupt activities, do you think? You cannot tell the people that you don't think that Andrew Holness, he should be taken off the ballot. He doesn't even deserve to go on the ballot. Does Mark Golding deserve to go on the ballot? Right? This is what we say it's a democracy, don't we? I don't think it is, but that's what we think it is. So why don't we play the game? Right? And have Andrew Holness on the ballot unless the courts in Jamaica, convict Andrew Holness for acts of criminality. I don't think that any podcaster, be me or anybody else, can say that he does not deserve to be on the ballot. All right? I would probably ask the question, does he deserve to win a third term? Does he deserve to win a third term? That's a different question. I might say no, I might say yes. Right? But to say does he deserve or he should not be on the ballot running for a third term, that is not what their authority is. That's not up to them. That's up to the Jamaican people. Because according to our constitution, he can run a third term, as Patterson ran a third term and won. Right? We are not sure if Andrew Holness is going to win. And as I'm suggesting, I don't care who wins. Because as far as I am concerned, both of them have the same policies. Different style, different way of, I'm not sure what this is, why this is here now. Messing up my screen. Whoa. It suddenly just came on my screen, ladies and gentlemen. Let me see if I could find something here to clean off the thing here. What's going on here? Okay, I don't know what's happening here, but please bear with me. My screen was just smeared up like that. Okay, so we don't know. We don't know what, well, I lost my trend of thought. We do not have the wherewithal, the authority to say whether or not Andrew Holness should go for a third term, because we are not the courts. We're not the judiciary. If they convict him, then let the law run its course. But to suggest that Andrew Holness should not be on the ballot because of your opinion, is ridiculous to me, to say the least. And these are people who are well respected by the Jamaican populace because they think that they want to develop Jamaica and they mean well for Jamaica. But you can't mean well for Jamaica if you're not following the law. Democracy should be the rule, should emphasize the rule of law, not just your opinions and what you think about the person that is your political rival or enemy. We have to learn to understand that. So there is an article that was written, and I was suggesting here that Mark Golding needs to up his game. And even though we're seeing, or what appears to be, alleged corruption activities and charges against the Prime Minister Andrew Holness, but he has to present clearly, he has to articulate explicitly plans, policies, And they have to be clearly articulated, not just speaking in broad terms that people are suffering, the cost of living is very high. I can say that because I am just a regular citizen. But as a leader of the opposition, he has to come with more specific and flesh out carefully what his plans would be and how he would govern differently. And they have to be workable. They have to be viable solutions and not just some hanky-panky declarations. Okay? Now, this was an article written by someone in the Jamaica Observer. It was written on June 2025. The PNP deserves another term in opposition. Right? That was the title of the article. The PNP deserves another term in opposition. This is what the writer is saying. As Jamaica approaches another general election, some are calling for a change in government, claiming the People's National Party deserves another chance. But political power is not a reward for nostalgia or party loyalty. It is a responsibility that must be earned, and the PNP has done nothing to prove it is ready for it. For nearly a decade in opposition, the PNP has remained stagnant, failing to grow, modernize, or offer a compelling and credible alternative to governance. And that is true. When you saw them there jumping up and singing at the protest, it looks like the 1970s. That's how we used to behave in the 70s. And the behavior has not changed. In fact, I think our people looked better in the 1970s, right? Our people didn't look as hardened and crude as we look at the moment, all right? Our leaders also looked better. In an era that demands bold, relatable, and decisive leadership, the party continues to fall short, weighed down by weak public perception and a lack of charisma, of course, which Mark Golding doesn't have. He doesn't have the charisma. And he doesn't, even though he articulates well, he speaks English well, but he is not able to use the political jargons and to captivate the imagination of the people. Whatever he's saying does not resonate. What can you remember that Mark Golding has stated that will ever remain with you? Nothing. A catchphrase, nothing. He's just there dancing and, saying the same things over and over again. That the JLP is corrupt and they're corrupt and we need to have elections now so that they can be voted out of office and allow us to come in and do the same thing. The current leader in particular has failed to ignite confidence among the electorate. He lacks the clarity, conviction, and national presence expected of someone seeking to lead Jamaica. In fact, his repeated absence from major national events raises serious questions about his commitment to the country he aspires to govern. Now, how this election would have been very exciting if you had had the likes of Damon Crawford. And I'm not a Damon Crawford fan, I can tell you that. And I'm not a PNP fan. I'm neither a PNP nor JLP fan. But I'm sure that if Damon Crawford was on the ticket as the leader of the opposition, that at least he would present a more credible opposition to the likes of Andrew Holness and his policies. Right? A lot of what Damon Crawford says lacks substance, but guess what? That's what politics is all about. It's all about substance, it's about being able to be toe-to-toe with your rival, your political rival. And he and Andrew Holness would be, and they would have to debate in the parliament, and it would be interesting to watch, to see how they would have handled those debates. Now, those debates are not going to help you Jamaicans in terms of your daily life. It's just entertain you, right? It's just entertain you. And for me to report on and to mark whether it's A or it's B, right? But it's not there to empower you at all. These people don't care about what's happening to you. Worse, the PNP continues to operate without a clear vision for Jamaica's future. Its members criticize, but offer no meaningful solutions. They offer no meaningful solutions. And I have been saying that. Crime, education, housing, cost of living, on every major issue affecting Jamaicans. The party speaks in generalities, and he's right, in generalities, or offers recycled promises from a past many of us have no desire to return. And that is true. They're just in the past. It's almost like they're in the days of Michael Manley. Yeah? And our people are just backward and they're just running after them as if they think that they're going to transform their lives. Even more concerning is the reliance on dishonest, sensationalist tactics to gain relevance rather than earning trust through integrity and policy. The PNP continues to chase headlines, distort facts, and stir division. That is not leadership. That is desperation. A third term in office, a third term in opposition, she's saying, isn't punishment, it's accountability. The PNP has squandered its time on the sidelines, showing no real interest in reforming itself until it demonstrates seriousness, unity, and competence. It is in no position to lead Jamaica. We cannot hand over the reins of governance to a party still running on fumes. Jamaica deserves progress, not political experiments. Sentiment is not a substitute for standards. And right now, the PNP doesn't meet the mark. And this was written by Shanice Lord. So that is what we're suggesting here. That is what we're suggesting here, that the PNP does not meet the mark, that they have to raise the bar. And not Andrew Holness, but Mark Golding missed a very opportune moment in which he could have articulated, in addition to protesting against the appointment of Dennis Chung, he could have also used that platform to have announced his manifesto. But he didn't. All he was saying is against Dennis Chung, and they have a point. If, in fact, as the Gleaner is reporting, the advertisement or part of the advertisement was taken back, was actually deleted, at least one of the responsibilities for that job, and should be the main responsibility also, because you're going after financial crimes, so you must have experience in law enforcement, which Dennis Chung doesn't seem to have. So even, yes, the protest was necessary, but he could have capitalized on the protest actions and to have launched his manifesto and say, this is the new Jamaica that I want to build. And these are the things that I will do differently than the current government, than the incumbent government under the leadership of Dr. Andrew Holness. But Mark Golding lost that key opportunity to have done that because he doesn't have any vision, as the writer is saying. He doesn't have any vision for where he's going to lead Jamaica to. He doesn't have any vision. And the PNP on the whole doesn't have a vision because they know that there's nothing that they can do. They know that they're not even in charge. So they have to be very careful of what they say. And I see Mark Golding also speaking stridently against the excoriating, as it were, the private sector for supporting the appointment of Dennis Chung. And that says to me, I'm wondering if Andrew Holness is going to win, if that is going to be the key to his winning, because the fact that he's speaking out, that Mark Golding is speaking out against the private sector organizations of Jamaica, which is a very powerful group and which determines whether or not he's going to win or lose the election, I wonder if that is the nail that he has, put in his coffin. He has nailed in his coffin. I wonder if that was the death sentence of Mark Jefferson Golding as far as winning the election. I think it seems to me that the private sector organization of Jamaica is in support of a third term of Dr. Andrew Holness. Let's see. I am not in support of Andrew Holness. I'm just suggesting, based on what I'm seeing and the fact that, and this is not the first time I've heard Mark Golding speaking out against the private sector, but he came out stridently in recent times about their support of Dennis Chung, and the fact that they're supporting him also suggests Dennis Chung signifies that they are with Andrew Holness government. I think, based on the perch on which I currently sit, I think that it seems like Andrew Holness is about to win a third term in office. And Mark Golding cannot really blame him for that, because had he presented a credible option and a much more lively, charismatic campaign, I think that he could have won Andrew Holness. Or why didn't Marky G just humble himself and given the leadership over to Damon Crawford and let him run with it? I think that if Damon Crawford had run with it, then it would be possible that the PNP could win this general election that is now approaching. But it's going to be a very close one to call. Let's see. Still close, and also politics can change overnight. But based on what Mark Golding is doing, Marky G, you need to step up to the plate. Marky G, you have to do something. You have to step up right now. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you'd like, share, and subscribe. Like the videos. The videos can be shared with as many people on the platform. See you in another one.